All right, I am here with Mr. Sean Light, who I'm fascinated by your backstory because you are like the most confident person I've ever met in my life. Or one of them, at least outwardly speaking. Like,
Okay.
you never know what's behind the outward representation, but something, I remember you as we have our, every philosophy and religion have their creation story or their origin story. The origin of our story was at the PRI seminar up in New York, where I got knocked into a new reality. And I've told that story numerous times, but you're actually much better at telling that story because you're just better at telling stories. So I would actually prefer you to tell the story, but
Sure.
first tell us how you end up in a PRI seminar, first of all, because
Yeah.
you went from print journalism.
Mm-hmm.
Let me start earlier than that. From Christian Brothers Academy in Lincroft, New Jersey.
Yeah. You did your research.
Well, I just remember you went to CBA. Yeah. I was a high school basketball junkie back in the day, so CBA,
There you go.
they were good. John Karate was there.
Yeah.
But that was way early. But anyway.
87, actually. I know that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So and then you went to college, Quinnipiac.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Print journalism, which clearly was not headed in the right direction in terms of an industry. And then you went to strength and conditioning, and how the heck did that happen? Because I think a lot of people fear changing careers or going into something they don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And, but you were just like, screw it.
Yeah. You know what, Neil, man? I mean, I guess it probably wasn't as screw it at the time, at least to my mom, and she wasn't too thrilled with my bouncing around to different careers. But, I would say right from the get-go, like always as a kid, I've just always been pretty stubborn and I marched to the beat of my own drum. That is undeniable. I'm 32 years old. Nobody's denying that anymore.
Yeah.
And I graduated my senior year of college. I had an internship at the New Haven Register. If you Google my name, Neil, I know you're going to do this afterwards. If you Google my name and like Sean Light, New Haven Register, I have 2 articles published. Okay.
Yeah.
I have one. I interviewed NFL players at a local charity event. Yes. I interviewed, as reporter Sean, interviewed local NFL players at a local charity event in New Haven. And I also covered one Yale women's tennis match, which I should note, I watched exactly zero volleys of that match, and I was just wandering Yale's campus and came back for the end and interviewed somebody about how they thought they did. It was great.
Nice.
But the job itself was horrendous. I hated it. It was so dreary. The environment sucked. I just could not stand it. So I ended up I had one more year of eligibility after my graduation, so I decided to go to graduate school to become a history teacher. I know
that's what I was going to do.
History buff. Yep, yeah, I know you're a history
guy.
I was
a high school history teacher until my year in college. I was like, I don't think I want to teach kids.
So oddly enough, I was a high school substitute history teacher for a year. I was. And I was in New Haven, Connecticut, and I don't know if any of your viewers are familiar with New Haven, Connecticut, but it's a bit of a rough area. And their school system was equally as challenging. And as the sub, I thought I was just going to be the cool guy who came in and, it's like, hey, whatever you guys want, like we'll just follow the lesson plan and we're out. And on day one, Neil, I lost complete control of the classroom. complete control of the classroom. I kid you not. At one point, there was a girl dancing on top of her desk. I had to call the security officer, who was a volunteer policeman, to come into the room to handle the situation. And I walked in. And I said, like, hey, man, like, this is completely out of control. Can you help me, like, wrangle this up a little bit? And he looks at the girl, and he's like, hey, Stacy, get off the desk. And Stacy literally turns to the police officer and gives him the finger. And I was like, oh, my God. And then the officer turns to me, and he goes, I tried. And he walked out. and I'm freaking, man. So I spent a whole year, and I got a little more comfortable, and the kids got used to me. So, you know, I found my groove a little bit, but it was never something I was really interested in doing. And honestly, on a whim, in my bedroom up in Hamden, Connecticut, where Quinnipiac is, I became my friend suggested that I become a strength coach, and I went into the next day. I went into Brajesh Patel's office, who was the strength coach when I played basketball there. He's still there. He's my mentor. He's a good friend now. Truly, probably the most influential person in my career. He allowed me to intern with him. He threw the Essentials of Strength and Conditioning book right on his desk and said, "Get to work." And I remember, I'll never forget opening up that first chapter and seeing actin and myosin and sliding filament theory and thinking it was straight Chinese, man. And it was a wild road. And I ended up passing. I literally passed the CSCS test with the minimum passing score. The minimum. I got a 70 on the dot. And I was like, I'll do what. Yeah. I was like, I will do anything I can to never, ever take that test again. So I ended up trying to find jobs like everybody going through the process. And I wanted to work in the pros, and I was obviously really far away from making that happen. And my mom one time suggested, after many failed sending applications out and interviews.
Who were you sending applications to?
Who knows, like random gyms in my area. You know, I think I sent one to the San Antonio Spurs. I honestly don't remember. I remember just sending them out on like Indeed.com or Monster.com, whatever was popular back then. And you know, I literally, nobody was responding. I got one interview, nobody else responded. And then my mom one time suggested that I just email every professional baseball strength and conditioning coach, because I had been talking about baseball. My brother was an up and coming baseball prospect. So there was like sort of inroads, but not really. And I found out that the minor league system is an entry level system where you can really get involved, and the pay on my first job was $23,500 a year. And it was, it was a great entry level job. So I ended up getting interviews with, I emailed every single strength and conditioning coach in professional baseball one night at like 3:00 in the morning. Ended up getting a couple calls back, ended up getting interviewed by the Mets, the Phillies, and the Diamondbacks. The Mets offered me first, and I actually accepted that job. But there was this like crazy back and forth that went on between the Mets and the Diamondbacks, that eventually the Mets guy was like, "You should take the Diamondbacks job."
They were competing for you?
Yeah, they were somehow.
Wow. Well,
somehow.
That makes you feel better.
Yeah, it did. And I was feeling myself, Neil.
I arrived.
Yeah, right. 23.5. That, what's interesting was the Diamondbacks had to up their offer to get to 23.5, and then I eventually ended up with the Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks, as far as I'm concerned, are the single best strength and conditioning organization, and sports medicine as well, in all of professional sports. I haven't seen them all, but it's the best that I've seen. It's the best that I'm aware of. They do an unbelievable job, incredible people, and everyone's like really savvy, really smart. The PRI was their philosophy when I got there.
What makes, because I'm pretty sure that no one watching this, although trainers do watch this, and a lot of people around the world watch this apparently.
You're famous, Neil.
Yeah, but I know nothing about that world. I've always, I think there's a lot of mythology about it, like, what it must be to be around professional athletes and how hard they must train or maybe not train. And that's why like the stories that you would tell when we had that Genius series, which was like one of the happiest times of my life. I would get up at really 5 a.m. on Saturday mornings to get into Manhattan by 9 a.m. and Wall Street area. So Sean and I could host these just discussion groups, and to actually go somewhere where people wanted your opinion and wanted to talk to you about something that you're passionate about was literally the greatest thing in the world. And those 5 or 6 months were just amazing.
We got to bring that back, Neil. We got to bring that back.
But I remember when you're like, I don't even think you had a name for it. And you're like, I'm just going to call it the Genius series. Like, I wouldn't have done that. To me, that would have been so presumptuous on my part. But knowing you as I know you, it's like, yeah, of course he's going to call it the Genius series. Because that's why you seem to have this confidence with whatever you do. But all right, so I don't want to change course too much.
We'll get there.
That's a recurring theme that I've come across with you, in that you don't give an F. not in a dickhead way.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like, you're not worried.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big deal in life. So
No
what
doubt.
makes a good strength and conditioning crew?
I think that the big thing is actually caring about your athletes and trying to do better. I think, at that level, you get a real mixed bag of people that are in it because we're at the pros and it's cool. And I got followers on Instagram and, people back home think that I'm the freaking man, right? Like that, there's a mixed bag. And then there's organizations who from the top down, the leadership is really good, which the Diamondbacks were. And there's one general direction. Everybody's pushing to be better. I don't necessarily I believe in PRI wholeheartedly. I believe it's the best science that's out there. But not everybody believes that. And I don't think that that's a requirement of being a really good sports performance organization. I think it's like caring and trying to be better and learning new things and not being, strong-headed about learning other things and, finding things that just honestly, it's just about caring, doing good, and having a cohesive unit. The Diamondbacks, I don't think, and I've seen a lot where, there's just random collections of strength and conditioning coaches. I remember one NBA team when I worked in the NBA where it was just one of the head athletic trainer of the team. Him and I were talking in the weight room before the game. And I was like, who is this person? They were performing soft tissue. He's like, I have no idea who this person is. I don't know what they do. And this is an NBA. This is a full-fledged NBA team. And he just is like, I don't know what the hell's going on with my team here. I don't know who these people are. The owner he literally sees something on the internet. Literally, this is a conversation I had. The owner sees something on the internet. He thinks it's awesome. So he just contacts them because he's the owner of an NBA team, and he hires them onto the squad. And now I have all these people that I'm looking after, and I'm responsible for their performance. So it's honestly just genuine care, top down, cohesive unit with a direction of a bunch of people trying to support the mission. I think that's what makes a good team.
Because from the outside, from me, you would or I would assume that any professional team would have this just tight shop, that they know what they're doing.
Right.
They're putting the resources towards it because, putting a winning product on the field or the court requires certain things.
Yeah.
But then like you just said, the reality might be a lot different, and might be very helter-skelter. It reminds me of this documentary I recently watched about how 4 of the greatest 80s movies were ever made, like Home Alone, Ghostbusters, and something else. But the recurring theme in this was, these are all blockbuster movies. I would have assumed that from production to filming to acting to everything was so planned out and perfect. And the exact opposite was the reality.
Sure.
Every single one was like, oh, we didn't know what we were doing. We just tried it. One of them, they were writing the script as the movie was being filmed. They were one page ahead. And what you realize is, if you've never, tried being self-employed, if you've never really been exposed to people who are entrepreneurs or have their own business, you may think that they know exactly what they're doing. But in reality, I think they have an idea of what they would like to do. And then you just try shit.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't
100%.
work, you try other stuff. And don't
100%.
get worried about it when something doesn't work out perfectly. And that's another thing, with you, it's you just try stuff.
All the time, nonstop.
And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But how I would have been previously, I would have been terrified about it not working.
Right.
And I would have interpreted it as a reflection upon me.
Yeah.
Oh man, I suck. Instead of, it just didn't work. Move on to the next thing. And I think what I admire about you is it's shoot first and then aim. Almost. Although I know that's not completely it. But you're not just try stuff.
And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of times, the way that I look at that, Neil, is I say, okay, this is where I am. This is where I want to be. There's no other way to go about this process. There's no other way to get from point A to end up at point B without doing that. There's just no way. And by all means, I'll never forget the first time I posted an Instagram story. I was in Hermosa Beach, California, and I took a picture of flowers. That was the first Instagram story I ever posted. And I was like, oh God, all my friends are going to absolutely punish me for this.
Was this when you were
And
working for the Lakers?
I was working
Okay.
for the Lakers, and I had 475 followers. Okay. And I was like, my friends are going to absolutely roast me for this. I'm going to be one of those people now. And I just was like, I was very uncomfortable posting it. And I just got to the point where here's a good story for you. You're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, right?
Of course. Yes.
So he's got this thing called the $1.80 strategy. Okay. This
Uh,
is classic. When the thing is you search relevant hashtags and you comment on people's photos so that they see you, and then that you generate a little dialogue and they end up following you and you grow your base. And I was like, that's brilliant. I'm going to try that. Right. So I was living in California, and I would go on people, wake up in the morning, and I would find like a hashtag. It'd be like Lakers. I was like, that's a layup for me. I'm going to freaking find some Laker fans. I'm a Laker strength coach. I'm going to start getting that going. So I start going on. I see people at the game, and I'm like, "Yo, thanks for coming to the game last night." Like basketball emoji, and like generate a little dialogue. My number started going up. I'm in the weight room like a couple days later, and our 7-foot rookie Ivica Zubats walks up to me with his phone, and he shows it to me. He goes, is this how you get followers? And I was mortified, dude. I was so embarrassed, because I was like, and my response to him was like, look, we're not all 7-foot NBA players who can get followers at the stroke of the wand here. I have to actually work at this. And and that's always been my thing. And I'm just as uncomfortable putting these things out and doing things, and I can rattle off a million examples of things that I've been extremely uncomfortable doing. And I remember recently I was giving a presentation at Holy Cross College, and my new thing now with my presentations is I will not be somebody who's going to stand up there and just talk at you for 1 hour. Right. If you're going to hear me speak, I'm going to do everything in my human capacity to communicate this message to you. And I believe that the way you do that is you get the energy going, and you have to raise the energy in the building and get people moving a little bit, get them engaged in the presentation. So the first thing I did was I gave like a little, like an inspiring, motivating 5-minute speech. And then I got everybody to stand up, and I orchestrated a slow clap with like a couple hundred strength and conditioning coaches up in the Northeast. And I had never done that before. And even like as I'm about to do it, I'm like, well, here we go. Let's see what happens. Like, I don't know if anybody's going to listen to me. I think this is out of the box. None of the other speakers that day were even close to that. But I said to myself, like, I look down the road and I see the Sean Light of 20 years from now. And by all means, like, I want to be somebody who has an incredibly successful business, who's helping a ton of people, and who can give seminars in front of thousands of people. That's my literal goal. And I say the absolute only way that is going to happen is if I'm constantly getting myself better. And I'm so committed to that, and I'm so driven by that outcome that these things, it becomes a lot easier to go through that process. I always tell people, if you're having a trouble, doing those things and finding that motivation, it's because your outcome isn't compelling enough. You have to find a way to be truly driven by your outcome. And then you don't even need motivation at that point, because you're just intrinsically motivated because you really want that thing. And that's what I mean. That is it. That's why I do anything that I do that is considered a little risky and a little challenging, and I would never do that thing. And I know that that's the only way to make it happen.
In terms of the outcome, how do you deal with the idea that craving the outcome too much, and if you don't get it, you get depressed about it? So it could be very easy to get compliments, or it can be very easy to fall into the trap of, people telling you you're the greatest, you're the best speaker, you're the best, you're the smartest, blah, 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 blah. And then when you associate that with yourself, that becomes a very egocentric kind of way of living.
Right.
So you can't live for that, because there's going to be other people that are going to be like, you suck. Or you might not get anyone to clap along with you. And then what do you do? Do you just completely fall apart? And I mean, it's tough. It's tough not to get the outcome that you're desiring. And how do you proceed from that point, especially when there's people watching you?
Yeah.
If that slow clap had failed miserably, how do you move on? Or are you just like, oh.
So I'm glad you brought that up, and we're getting into some weeds here already. You know, I believe that most people on the planet are driven by significance. They want to be significant in some way,
Yeah.
however that ends up being,
Yeah.
and they want to have certainty in their life. Right? These are the primary drivers of what people want in life.
Which
Okay.
no one has right now because of the current circumstances.
Well, here's the thing about these, and I should say that this whole spiel, like I learned this from Tony Robbins.
Mm.
So the thing about significance is that you can never achieve it. It's an unachievable goal. It's an unachievable outcome, because unless maybe Jeff Bezos, right? Like who is he modeling himself after anymore? Right. I don't really know. Right. He probably is. There's probably somebody he's looking to as a goal, which is the reason that Amazon doesn't make any money, because they're kind of trying to take over the entire world, right? Yeah. But significance, you can never get there because there's always somebody a step ahead, and you're just like, that guy's better. I want that, right? Oh, yeah. And certainty, the thing about uncertainty is that there is no such thing as certainty in our world. So the interesting thing is most humans are driven by significance and certainty, and they're two unachievable things.
That's right.
Right. So ultimately they will always fail. Right. I think the true process is, and this is just really flows well for me, because I just got off the phone with one of our club members, and this is what I was telling him. The true journey for anybody in life who aspires to be great is to genuinely change the forces that drive you. And I believe there's two driving forces of success. And that is personal growth. Okay. You personally have to be driven to get better. And that you cannot keep that growth with yourself. You have to be able to turn that around and shoot that back and contribute that back out to the world. I 100% believe this. If you are truly driven by personal growth and contribution, everything else takes care of itself. I don't have to worry about the slow clap not working. I only have to worry about doing everything that I can to make it happen. It's not, if it doesn't work, that means that I need to be better to communicate that message, right? And it's always about just like, did I do my best? Did I do everything I could to make that happen? I like to think in every time I speak, every time I record a podcast, during this video right now, I picture, for whatever reason, in the back left corner, I see a young Sean Light, who's sitting out there, who is driven by ego, driven by significance, driven by certainty, who is never going to get that and desperately needs to hear this message.
Absolutely.
And I believe that somebody in every audience desperately needs to hear that message. So the whole journey for me as an entrepreneur, as a human being at this point, is to not be successful, not be, rich, not be significant. It's to do everything I can to actually transform my driving forces to that of personal growth and contribution, to make that the actual juice that gets me rolling every day. Yeah. And I think that changes the game. And if you get that, the crazy thing about that, significance and certainty take care of itself.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, because everything, even in my own life, everything else just fell away. Like all the other concerns fell away when I realized that I was helping people and that my own story could help people, because I was low confidence for the majority of my life. I was, from a very young age, things started going downhill with the confidence in the confidence arena. And actually, it was something that you said to me actually boosted my confidence 2 years ago, because we never know who we can influence in a good way. You have no clue who's listening to you.
Right.
You have no clue who's responding to the way that you look at them, either in a good way or a bad way. I know that from teaching dancing. You have to be so cautious about how you teach people anything in dancing or anything else, because if you are somebody in their eyes, they already have you up on a pedestal. So something that you say or do could either, completely destroy them,
right,
or boost them up. And I remember 2 years ago, after the SUV ran into the dance studio that I was using for doing my PRI training, and after Google destroyed my business by just destroying my website after an algorithm, I had no business left. And I had already started the YouTube channel. But you were like, hey, just come in, visit me, and we'll just, talk, blah, blah, blah. And then you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk, and I was like, I'll just watch the videos. And I already knew who he was because he used to own the wine store in Milburn, in Springfield, which is Milburn. And so I already knew who he was. But you kind of said to me, we were talking about PRI, and you said, yeah, you're kind of the only person I can talk at this level with. And that meant a lot to me because I thought I was seeing things properly. I was going to seminars where people were still just talking. They weren't talking neuro whatsoever. They were just still talking about muscles and bones. I'm like, I don't think that's what it's about. And so I was doubting myself. And having that come from you, because you've been around these people, like, as we say, whether top flight training in this NBA or the major leagues is as top flight as we think it is, who knows? But the fact that you're around these people and you said that to me, that, yeah, I think you're the only person I can really talk to in these terms about this stuff. That really boosted my confidence. I was like, all right, if he thinks I'm good at it, I must be good at it. And so I went from there. And that's really when I got really confident with the YouTube channel, not to be afraid to get criticized. Luckily, because that is a fear. If you
of course,
facing that angry viewer who doesn't understand what you're talking about, and I realized a lot of people were not going to understand it, but I just said, you know what? I'm not going to worry about those people.
Right.
Because they're just not going to get it. They're not in a place that they can relate to it. Whereas sometimes other people who know nothing about PRI, they watch these videos and say, I feel in my body what he's talking about. I feel twisted. Yep. And they feel completely validated because someone is talking about this pattern inside their body that's occurring.
Right.
And everyone else is telling them they're crazy. So when you can focus on those people and ignore the haters, because they're always going to be there. And every now and then I get some negative comments, but I just realized that person has no clue what I'm talking about. And they can't wrap their head around it.
I always say,
10 years ago, I would have worried more about that person than all the people I'm helping.
Of course.
But when you've got that confidence and the ego has fallen away, and you no longer live for that praise and you don't fear blame, you're good to go. Like all those, it's just a weight off your shoulders. You just keep going.
Yeah, dude, you're the perfect example of all of that driving force that I'm talking about. I'll get texts from you and you'll say like, I just got 5,000 followers on YouTube, and you're like, I don't even know how the hell that happened, right? And like, do you know how many people would kill for the 5,000 followers on YouTube? But like for you, that's not the concern. Like the other texts I get from you about the random bone that you found, that you discovered inside of your cranium,
like 6 a.m.
and how that is, and then how that's been ruining the whole thing, right? Like for you, it's like you're so driven by growing and learning more about this process and then turning it around for everybody else. And the funny thing about that is like you are now at the point where that is your driving force. And it's and like I always say, and I should use you as an example more for this. I'm going to use you more as an example.
I think I had you on.
Right.
It's really about me, not about you, by the way.
always. But when you actually get to that point, right, and it's not fake, it's not BS anymore. When you actually get to that point, the results take care of itself, because people are constantly looking for those people that can help them out. There's not a lot of people out there that can do it, or who are even willing to try. And when you're on that level, when you get there, truly, I tweeted the other day, this is one of my best tweets of all time. I said something like if your goal is to make $100,000, you have to become that person before you actually make that money. That's like asking for, if you're waiting, that's like asking for the explosion without making the bomb. You have to become the person first, and then all of the results take care of itself afterwards. And that's, to me, as far as I'm concerned, whatever anybody listening right now, whatever goal that you have, look to see who it is that is doing that, and just model that. Just see what it is. That's one of the reasons that I get up every single day and throw lotion through this beautiful lettuce that I have up here, and I wear nice clothes, and I wear nice shoes, and I'm not going to see anybody that I'll see you, but I wear this every single day because I think about who Sean Light's going to be in 20 years, and I think about what I'm going to be wearing living in my penthouse in New York City, and I'm like, okay, he's wearing that. Okay, I'm going to go get that right now and wear that right now so I can get a little bit closer to that end result.
Acting as if
Acting as if 100%, 100%. I think about, it was funny. I was running the other day, and I said to myself, and I always picture myself, I have a apartment that I saw on YouTube. It's $16 million. Okay. Just to be clear. It's in Madison Square Park Tower in New York City. Unbelievable view of looking south of Manhattan. And I always picture myself standing at that window, looking out this is my home now.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I thought to myself, I said, Sean, like, if you're standing there, you've accomplished that. You bought the apartment, probably paid in cash because I'm a savage. Whatever. I'm standing there. I'm looking south of Manhattan. I'm like, what are you thinking about? Like, what is driving you to actually be successful today? And I was like, well, if money's no longer an object, or, that's not a problem anymore. The only thing that's driving me is, and I came up with this phrase, world-class contribution, in helping people out at a really high level. That would be the only thing I could have thought of that could help people out. And I said, well, there it is. If that's what $16 million apartment Sean is thinking, that's what current Sean needs to be thinking. And then once I get there, and that's legit, then I'll become $16 million Sean.
Yeah. How did your mindset change from NBA and sports training to what you're doing now, which is, and I didn't even mention what you are doing now, because I'm not even really sure, tell you the truth, because you're kind of doing a lot of different things. You're clearly helping people in different ways. So you have this 4A health club, which is mostly for trainers?
Yes.
Okay. And how are you fitting that? How did you go from training the NBA and baseball to being like, you know what, I'm going to start this educational club?
Sure.
From out of nothing. Like,
yep.
How did you go through that transformation?
Yeah. So what ended up happening when I was with the Lakers, my general manager, he got fired. Okay. And they brought in Magic Johnson. And when Magic Johnson came in, he did not like Sean.
Is that normal in professional?
Yeah, I mean that's standard. I believe that if you take a job at that level, you sign your death wish. Like you're going to get fired at some point. It's not a matter of when. It's a matter of, or not a matter of if. It's a matter of when.
When coaches change, there's usually the whole.
Yeah, I mean a lot of people have their guy and stuff like that. And I was hired by the general manager, and when Magic Johnson came in, like I could tell right away. Like it's not like where there was bad blood or anything. Me and Magic Johnson don't have beef, but so he had a guy named Gunnar Peterson, who he had worked with in the past. The other general manager, Rob Pelinka, he was also linked up with Gunnar Peterson. Fame. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah. So it was, I could tell, like literally the first day we were in there, those guys came in, I could tell that things had changed.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting fired from the Lakers, and I thought about it and deciding where I wanted to go next. And I had some opportunities to go back into the NBA with some other teams. But my thought process was, look, I spent so much time and effort learning, trying to be great at what I do, that somebody can just come in out of nowhere, not even talk to me, and just let me go. And now, now I'm left without a job. And that's just simply the nature of that beast. And I looked at the teams, like there were a couple teams, I won't name names, but there were a couple teams that I was in talks to about jobs. And I'm looking at them like, this is a mid-level team. They're not very good. Coach has been there 3 years. I think he might get fired. Like I could be in the same situation as I am next. Yeah. I actually was interviewing for a head strength coach job at a high major college basketball team. And I interviewed
Maryland?
No, not Maryland. I'll tell you off the air.
Okay.
And then I'm sitting there, I'm interviewing, and then after the interview, they were like, yeah, they're basically about to offer me the job. And I got called from my an old friend of mine, we'll say. And he called me up and he's like, don't take that job. They're going to fire you at the end of the year. They're going to fire the head coach, and then they're going to fire you right after. And so they ended up.
So there is certainty in the world.
Listen, yeah, there are places.
Yeah.
And so I ended up saying no to that job, and they hired somebody from the NBA, and they fired him at the end of the season. So, I mean, thank you. Lucky stars that worked out that way. And basically it just I was always open to the idea of going back, but it had to be a perfect situation. And of all, I mean, I don't get so many calls anymore. I did a lot in the beginning, but the situations were never, something that I was like, this is a good deal for me. And I never wanted to be like a journeyman, like just traveling from team to team to team. That was never something I wanted to do. So I've always had my idea all along was to go to the NBA for a couple of years and then start this business, this exact business.
The 4A club.
Yep.
Can you just explain what that is?
Yeah. So the business, the idea is, I value the education side of it a lot more. And what I've come to find out is that we're in an industry where, there's people that are successful that maybe shouldn't be successful, right? That maybe aren't as smart or as skilled as other trainers. And what I have found is that there's an actual path that you need to follow if you want to be successful. And the way I consider success is financially, you're good, right? And you have the job that you want. You're doing the work that you feel you were put on this planet to do. And I think that there are very specific steps that you need to follow in order to make that happen. So for what I decided to create were vehicles to take people along that journey. So we have, for example, the 4A Health Club is every month we're putting out a new course. There's exercise science on there. There's a course on motivation, how to create unlimited motivation. There's a course on goal setting. There's a course on blogging, search engine optimization, because all of these tools are really important to a huge section of our audience. And this is certainly not for the average Joe trainer who doesn't really aspire to much, who doesn't really love the job. This is for people who are hungry. It's the people like me who really want to become something and impact people, and
who also realize nothing is certain. So you better keep you gotta keep creating. Like how many times I worked at a gym at one point. That gym hasn't been open in 6 months. Like, you cannot rely, and this is something I try to get across to people. You cannot rely on other people for your employment. I mean, you have to be able to have a skill of some type that you can sell.
Right.
Because even if you're not making a ton of money, which you're probably not in the beginning, and that's just part of it. But if you are putting your faith in corporate America, don't. There's nothing wrong with being an employee. Absolutely. But there's nothing guaranteed just because you're an employee now. They will cut you. Remember, you are still a labor cost to those corporations.
No doubt.
And if it costs too much, they will cut you. So even in your free time, have a skill, develop a skill, get good at it, get freaking good as hell at that skill. So if something does happen and you do get fired or you get laid off, you have something that you can jump in with and have a skill that you could sell, preferably online, because life may be different for the next couple of years. But again, you got to develop something on your own, not just be under the whim of a coach, an owner who decides he wants to go in a different direction. That's one thing I can't go back to, because that will create major uncertainty in your life. I'd rather have limited income, but have it under my control.
Exactly. And that's always been my MO. I always wanted to be able to do as much as I can to control my destiny and where I was going to end up. Yeah. I remember when I worked in baseball, the collective bargaining agreement in Major League Baseball did not allow other organizations to talk to me without requesting permission from my superiors. Wow. And I know for a fact that my superiors were denying some people to have those conversations. So for me, I was like, there's a really serious chance that nobody will ever know that I exist just by legislature. Right. So that's where I really started looking into the NBA, because I was like, I'm not going to just sit here and hope that I end up making the big league someday. I need to go out and make that happen. Right. And that's why I never went back to the pros, because I just didn't want to leave that up to this funny story. People think that of course, like you were saying before, like all the best are in the NBA and in the MLB and whatever. And I think it's challenging to get into the interview. But once you're in the interview, it's anybody's game. This is exactly how my interview went for the Lakers. This is exactly how it went. I'm in full suit. I'm in El Segundo, California. I'm in the office. I'm here. Behind the desk is Mitch Kupchak, the general manager. To my right is Tim DeFrancesco, who was the head strength coach there, and to my left was new head coach Luke Walton. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
Luke Walton was sitting there in purple shorts and a black cutoff, eating with a backwards hat, eating a Chipotle bowl. Okay, Mitch Kupchak was sitting back. There was no words being said in the interview. This is 100% fact, Neil. He's leaning back in his chair. He's looking over my resume. He's looking through, and then he sees that I'm a licensed massage therapist. And he looks above his glasses. He's like, "You're a massage therapist?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Massage Luke's arm right now." And I go, "What?" So I stood up, full suit, walked over to Luke Walton, who I had never met before, and I performed an ART pin and stretch release on his shoulder in the middle of my interview for the Lakers. I go through it, and I was careful to make sure it kind of felt nice. I didn't like drag too much skin.
Yeah.
And then when it was done, Mitch looks at Luke and goes, "How was it?" And Luke is like, "I tell you, that feels pretty good." And I was like, "All right, there it is." And like they asked me a couple other questions. It was really pretty easy, and I got hired. Like a couple days later, and that was the nature of the beast. And what's interesting is I tell people all the time that if you want a job in the NBA, you just have to convince the general manager, who has no idea what he's talking about, right? And that's no disrespect to these guys. They just don't. They have not devoted their life. What's interesting about our world is that the general population believes that they know for certain what it takes to be a good strength and conditioning coach, which is high volume, motivation, mental toughness, and more,
Yeah.
right? And everybody looking yoked. Nobody knows a damn thing about a posterior mediastinum or an ischiocondylar adductor. Another funny story is there was a point in the season where we were told that to start the warm-ups, we had to sit around in a circle at center court, spread eagle, and stretch our groins, because that's how Pat Riley used to have the guys do it back when we were winning championships. Right. And that's the nature of the game at there. And there's just millions of stories that I have like that. And everybody else who's been at that level has of that. And, for me, I never, ever wanted to, again, put myself in a position where people on the outside were going to make their decisions of who Sean Light is based on a guy who has no idea who Sean Light is. Right. So I created this company, and I wanted to create these vehicles to help people find that success. I went from, I tell people this all the time. I went from a journalism degree. I got my CSCS in 2012. I was the strength coach for the Lakers in 2016. 4 years, right? Yeah. And I don't say that, here's another thing that makes me uncomfortable when I talk about like how quickly and how successful I am, and financially how successful that I've been, is because it kind of comes off skeevy. But what I want people to know is that this is all possible. You can do this. There's very real steps that you need to take. You just need to have somebody who can help you along that journey. And that's what I created For A Health for, so that I could create these vehicles to help people along whatever step that they're at. I can get them along that journey and help them go to that next step until they get above the threshold, and now they're the hero, and they're able to do the same thing for their lives. And at the same time, Neil, when we circle back to growth and contribution, I know that alone I can't have that impact, right? So secretly, what I'm really trying to find are the other people out there who can do it, who can inspire more people and can have that impact, who can then, again, it's just like my own little pyramid scheme here. I'm trying to find the other people who can do it and can rise up above everybody else and actually change this industry. People talk about it all the time. I see it on Twitter. This industry needs a reform. We got to do something about this. We need to do something about, X, Y, and Z. Well, let's freaking do something about this. And that's what 4A Health is.
Changed about the fitness and strength and conditioning community? I'm not really involved in it anymore. So,
right.
I'm in my own land.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, I think that, I feel bad for the general population who are simply at the mercy of marketing dollars, and they don't know. They have no idea what's good, and nor should they.
Right.
I don't think that's fair. I think that you know, Neil, during this quarantine, like right out here, the gyms are closed, and there's this huge staircase right outside my window. Okay, and I sit up here, and I watch. It's become the fitness hub of Hoboken, New Jersey. Okay, and I sit out here, and I watch the amount of burpees that get performed outside my window are just mind blowing. And I look at these and I see these people who think that they're very well meaning people that are probably going to suffer with a lot of low back pain, who are probably going to have knee pain. I wrote an article called "This is Fitness Generation Number One" a couple years back that was referring to the fact that right now in the NFL, we're seeing the first generation of football realizing what it has done to their bodies. And I think that this is the first generation where fitness has really been a big component of our life and our lifestyle in this society. And in 20, 30 years, you're going to see what it has done to your body. And there's going to be back disc problems, discectomies. There's going to be knee replacements and hip replacements, and all this stuff is going to come back up. And hopefully, you know, I think what needs to happen is people need to realize that is what's happening here. But unfortunately, Neil, I think it's going to take, I truly believe that it's going to take the realization of a ton of people getting injured like that, or a humongous marketing campaign with really influential people to make that shift. But it's so embedded in people's minds of what fitness is and what fitness looks like that. I mean, I dealt with it at the professional level. Guys wanted to look like they were, you know, six-pack abs fitness models. And I'm like, no, why would you want that? That's stupid.
Yeah. And so I know we've had this discussion, and you're the first person that I remember articulating it. I had thought about it, but you said that, you know, you thought people were just kind of training themselves into oblivion. And I agree with that. And I've mentioned that on my channel in numerous videos where I always try to be diplomatic and say, you know, just because you can do something doesn't mean it's necessarily great for your body. Like, you can hyperextend your knee, but I wouldn't train it, you know. Because what you find is people who just cannot stop working out, and but they're in constant pain, and they don't see the connection, or maybe they do and they just ignore it, or they wish maybe they can out-train that connection between training too much and pain. And I know they're extended. I know what pattern they show up as. I know what pathology that they're going to probably have. I know their visual system is probably being strained. I know that they're creating malocclusion in their own mouth because they're so extended, because they deadlift and squat and overhead press and do all these, everything in moderation. But, you know, they're just doing too much of it. And if they knew what they're doing to their body, if they knew they could end up like me, what I was, would they keep doing that? Because they haven't gotten to that point yet. But, like, I'm passionate about it. People are doing way too much. And they are destroying themselves. They are turning themselves into a sympathetic fight or flight zombie. And the only way they can remedy it is by doing more of it. And they're just destroying themselves. And I know people watch this channel, and I try to get that point across. I'm like, guys, I see what lays down on my table. You don't know what those tests are telling me, but when your neck cannot laterally flex more than 3 degrees on both sides, you're in trouble.
You better
Do
believe
you agree with that?
Of course.
Neck. The moment that neck is, I don't care what your pelvis is doing. I don't care what your rib cage is doing. I do, but I just want to know what the neck is doing. If the neck is loose and moving, everything else is workable. But once that neck is not moving, this could be a long road.
I'll tell you what, Neil, I think that when we have discussions like this, you know, you think back to, you know, what's going through people's minds and what are they driven by? Like, why do they work out? Most people don't work out because they want to be healthy. They work out because they want to look good. They want to, they want to look good on the beach, right? Like, those are the drivers of why people work out. And my stance on that is like, look, like, I want you to have the information. Like, I want you to know, and you and I both know that this is complex. I mean, you and I have dedicated our lives to this subject, and there's plenty more that we don't know. And, you know, how can an accountant who works 9 to 5 have this depth of information? It's really not possible. That's why you want the trainers to be proficient and understand it, because that's what they've dedicated their life to. But where I stand right now, Neil, is I think that the big X factor, and the one thing that everybody can do to improve instantly the amount of movement variability, the pain in their body. I truly believe that this is the best thing that you can do, is have as much fun as you can possibly have. And the neurological effects of fun downregulates the system. It frees up the body, and of course that there's still going to be some issues that are going to present itself, but I can't even tell you how many PRI symptoms, PRI tests have cleared up just because I've been able to get somebody to relax, get somebody to have fun, get people to understand that that your hip mobility is a lot different when you wake up in the morning than it is here. And what does that tell me?
Have them walk the opposite direction in New York City. Can you just
You
tell
better
that
believe.
story? Can you just tell that story, because people don't believe me.
Sure.
I know they don't believe me.
Yeah, I had this gal come in, and she was a runner, and she wanted to run a marathon. She comes to me, she's like, I think it was right knee pain, and she's like, I'm running a marathon. I'm like, great, when are you running it? She's like, in 4 weeks or something like that. I'm like, wow, you really, I got my work cut out for me here. So we went through the process. I gave her all the tests, and what I do in the beginning of all of my sessions is I just like Q&A, right? And I do the Q&A for a couple of reasons. One, because I want the information, and I'm trying to like deduce like the whole picture. Yeah. But two, I know that I'm 6'4", I'm a big guy, and you've never met me before, and that you're probably going to be intimidated by me when I first stand in front of you. And neurologically, I'm going to get a different result if you're intimidated by me. So I got to find a way to develop a little bit of a rapport.
You mean it's so not just about muscles? Patterns are not.
It is. It's 99% about muscles. Okay. So I get her in there, and we're talking about this stuff, and I end up, and this is a very real assessment. I asked her to describe to me her route that she runs every single day, and I think she lived in Midtown East, Upper East Side, and she said she runs east out of on like, let's say 86th Street or something, and she runs all the way to the East River. She runs up the East River. She goes up to like 102nd. Goes west, and then starts running down Central Park East, right? So, and I was like, well, why do you do that? And she's like, the view is just phenomenal. So what I'm seeing, and just trying to understand this, and also knowing that I have to make a big change quickly, I'm seeing that the entire time that she's running, she's focused visually on the right side. She's looking at the ships on the river. She's coming back around, and she's looking at Central Park East, and looking at the beautiful streets along Fifth Avenue or Madison Avenue, whatever that is, right down the Central Park East there. And I said to her, I was like, look, we go through a lot of things here. We give you resets. We can do all sorts of different things, and we'll certainly give you some resets. But I think the thing that's going to be most effective for you is if you go the opposite way on your route. And I'm sure you know, Neil, how they're like, I'm paying you for what exactly here? Yeah. And I said, look, like this is how it works. This is the visual system. This is what I think. Here's your resets to make you happy, but do this. I told her, I said, don't do the resets for 3 days. Go do this loop first, and let's see how your knee feels. She emails me in 3 days, and she says, my knee is completely better. And it's just, again, it's the awareness of the body. It's awareness of what's going on. It's the freedom and the permission to giving yourself to be creative and think about, when I give my 2-day seminar, I at the end of it, I try to give you permission to make shit up, right? Because I was like, I just gave you 25 exercises, and guess what? One day I was sitting at my desk and I made it up. And like, this is how anything becomes anything, is somebody made it up. And if you understand the way that the body works, you can provide all sorts of different solutions to a problem, but you just have to make sure you do your homework and you understand what's actually going on here. And when you do that, you can, now this person thinks I'm freaking Harry Houdini, and she sends everybody to me, and he's going to tell you to run the opposite way, and he's going to charge you an arm and a leg, and you're on your way.
I'll probably get those questions. So all I have to do is run the opposite direction. No, it's not always that simple.
Right.
You have to stabilize your body, do all this other stuff, but getting someone neutral. And so I just did this on Sunday with somebody. All I had him do to get him completely neutral, meaning if you don't understand what neutrality is, and PRI just means you have full range of motion, including the neck. I had him sense his body weight shift to the left, feel the ground come up underneath his left heel, step forward with his right foot and his left hand, notice it happening, and go. Walk down, walk back, neutral. Why? All I did was, doesn't mean he's stable, but he inhibited his dominant pattern, which is always shift to the right and step with the left foot. So we had him shift to the left and step with the right foot, had him notice it, bring awareness that it was happening, notice his left hand coming in his left peripheral vision, which is like running to the left instead of always to the right. And his brain said, oh, go to the left. Okay, I'll do that. But he had lost that ability, which is basically all PRI people. If you're a patient, or really all humans, we love to start with the right side. And it is inhibiting a pattern is simply changing a neurological outcome by giving you different sensory stimulus. That's it. Again, doesn't mean you're stable. Doesn't mean you can run 20 miles when you couldn't run like a half mile 2 days ago. It just means we inhibited a pattern. And even with doing what you did with starting a career, someone else may have been in a pattern of thought of, I can't do this. Only other people can do this because they have it. So, they know people, or, they were born into the right family. Well, you're stuck in a pattern of negative thought. You have no clue how other people, you can do stuff.
No doubt.
You just have to try. And then once you have a little bit of success, you've inhibited a pattern of negative, catastrophic thinking. And
100%.
The thought patterns and the physical patterns of the body are not different. It functions the same way. And I really want to get that across to people so they don't just think about muscles and bones. If there's one thing that I think the industry has to change, is this obsession with muscles and bones and the mechanical processes. Because if your sensory processes and what you're sensing and feeling and not noticing, or noticing too much of, doesn't change, your mechanical outcomes are not going to change very well. And that's what I'm trying to push big time, because I think a lot of people are missing that, or maybe they just don't understand it. And I understand it's not easy. But when you get that changes in tests, all this range of motion changes completely. And you didn't stretch a thing, you didn't lift a thing, you just had them notice something different that they weren't accustomed to. And you just inhibited the pattern.
It's big time stuff, Neil.
And you are allowing people probably to inhibit their patterns of negative thought of, oh, I can't do this.
That's the goal, baby.
That is the goal. I think that's awesome. So wrapping up, what you're doing right now, what is driving you? We've kind of already talked about what's driving you, but right in this instant, whatever day is today, August 7th, maybe? I don't know.
I think that's right.
Yeah. What is Sean Light most concerned about?
What am I most concerned about?
What's driving you? What are you just like, oh, I can't wait about to do this. I can't wait. I got to change that. Whatever is, you're just like, oh, I can't wait.
I would say that one of my strengths is that I never really get into that spot where I'm like, oh my God, I want to really do something. I like to keep it really, really level all the time. The big thing on my radar right now is I've created this thing called the 4A Step Up Challenge, where it's a completely free event where we're going to spend an entire week with everybody who joins. It's going to be NASM, NSCA, CEU approved. And the big thing that I'm really trying to do is, and Neil, you were part of the first Coaches in Quarantine event, which was a great experience. It was a resounding success. We had 3,000 people involved. It was incredible. And my idea was that I wanted to do that, take that idea and just absolutely level up so hard. So the idea is it's going to be completely different. It's going to be significantly better, although Neil's not going to be there. So, how much better can it really be?
Not
much. But yeah, so like that's, my thing right now, I created this notebook here where I went through and I just have my plans laid out. It's hard to see here, but I got my plans laid out for everything that I need to do, all the tasks that I need to accomplish, what my goals are. And I'm literally just going piece by piece down and just knocking off every single thing and doing everything I can. The big thing, Neil, is to deliver a service to people that is way better than they're expecting to receive.
Does it feel overwhelming at times? Because I know from the salsa world, putting on an event is hard work. Well, it's a lot of work. And you have to do all these little things to get a successful event, to get people to show up. I know it's hard. So how do you how do you process, like, how do you not get overwhelmed by the enormity of being like, I need people to actually, I just,
Yeah, it's certainly tough. I will say that, whenever you launch something like this, you have no idea if anybody's going to show up. You have no idea, but for me, as far as I'm concerned, like that's kind of your scoreboard there, right? Like how good am I actually doing at delivering this message and communicating that I can actually be of service to anybody. I think that in the beginning, one of the benefits that I've had in the beginning of my career was uh, doing everything I could for free, and trying to literally help us out. Hop on the phone with anybody. I would talk to anybody. I would help people out. I would send them free stuff. I would connect them to people. And I think I built up this rapport
goodwill.
with a lot of folks. Yeah, a lot of goodwill. And I think the reputation behind me is that I'm not trying to scam you out of any money. The way I view marketing is that my job is to grab somebody's attention, and then hold it to communicate a message to them. And that message somehow needs to be that I can actually, no bullshit, I can actually provide a real serious value to you in your life,
Right.
career, whatever, that I can actually do that. And I'm going to leverage my strengths to do that. And that's how I view marketing. It's about, can I capture your attention? Can I communicate that I can really help you? And then can I follow through with that on the back end? And for me, if nobody signs up for this event, which thankfully that's not the case right now,
Right.
signups have been going awesome. But if nobody signs up for this event, to me, it's like, okay, here's an unbelievable example, Neil. I can't believe I didn't even think of this. This is great. When I first started this business, I was like, I'm going to create a seminar. It was called the Real Recovery Workshop. Okay. I'm going to create the Real Recovery Workshop, and I'm going to launch it in New York City. I'm going to get some people to host it. I'm going to get people to sign up. Right. So I went over to this place called Clay in New York City, and I went over to Chelsea Piers in New York City, and I got them both to agree. I somehow convinced the fitness managers that we could host at these facilities, separated a couple months, whatever. And I launched it. I put it on social media, and exactly 0 people showed up and signed up.
So that is a huge, I mean, that's having the birthday party that no one shows up to. That
Yeah.
is, because that would, any person would say that reflects my worth.
Yes. Yes.
I know most of my, I know that most of my, the people that watch this are probably guys. All right. I'm pretty sure, because YouTube somehow knows. I don't know how to know.
Yeah.
But
They know everything.
yeah. And so many people have such low self-esteem. And if you have low self-esteem and you put yourself out there and try something like you did, and it's
Right.
just crickets, like you get nothing, how does that not just confirm every horrible thing you've already thought about yourself? You probably weren't thinking about yourself in that way, but I would imagine that you were probably like, oh shit, well, damn. But
Yeah. I mean, I was,
it's
as far as I'm concerned, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, everybody is paid exactly what they're worth. 100%. If nobody shows up, that's what you're worth. And for me, I mean, the difference was, I'm not going to like crawl into a hole and give this thing up. I'm going to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. I ended up launching a seminar, maybe 7 months later, and 6 people showed up. So I was like, hey, there we go. I'm doing something better, right? And then I went to 10, and then 12, and 20, and so on. And now, thankfully, literally hundreds of people from around the world who are trusting me with this process. And I think that it's there's like we said in the beginning, right? We're coming full circle here, Neil. If you're going to go from point A to point B, there's no way around that. There's all sorts of failures that I try and do stuff that still fail to this day. And it's, to me, it's just like, okay, like you got to look at it. You have to assess it. How can it be better? The best example of this is in Ray Dalio's book, Principles. The way he does it, the way he has set up his entire company, which by the way is rather successful. He's worth $10 billion. He's created machines. So he created a user experience machine, like an investment machine for his hedge fund. And he created like a customer acquisition machine.
Right.
And he just created the machines, and then he would objectively assess every machine. He would triangulate all decisions with 3 different people, trustworthy opinions, who could look at it, have different views, have different thoughts, and they could come to the the best answer on each thing and on each decision. And then over time, it just became a really, really good process. If you look at the 4A Health Club 12 months ago, you're gonna be like, oh God, like, you know, even you, here's the interesting thing. If you go into the Coaches in Quarantine, if you, anybody who's listening who was at Coaches in Quarantine and now goes through the process of signing up for the 4A Step Up Challenge, you're going to see that I stepped it the hell up. Like, it is significantly better.
Yeah.
Significantly better on every account. And to me, that's the game. Yeah. It's, you know, we're going to try something here. And guess what? And, you know, this is going off in September. When I run the next one in December or January, whatever that's going to be called, you're going to look back at the 4A Step Up Challenge. You're going to be like, oh man, that was not as good as this thing right here. And it's just constantly, it's just next level. It's next level. It's next level. And for me, I think when I first signed up for, like, now it's, I thought about this at the time, where when I get these seminars and nobody signs up, I'm like, man, when I do succeed, this is going to be amazing. Neil, I have a video. It's saved up on my phone. This is so great. And maybe this is the perfect time to release it. I have this video that I created when I first started my company. This is incredible. I literally, from the Lakers, I was in Staples Center working on famous athletes. Shaq was coming into the weight room. LeBron James was in the weight room. Like, I was in there chatting with Vince Carter and Steph Curry and watching Kevin Durant, like all these guys, like, in the weight room. And then all that stops. I'm starting a business and I got to figure it out. And next thing you know, I'm at a local middle school with a massage table set up on the side with a little stand-up board advertising for myself at a amateur wrestling event. And I'm not talking about, you know, Olympic wrestling. I'm talking about like WWE wrestling stuff at a local middle school. It was so ridiculous. It was so weird. It was so awkward and uncomfortable. But I sat there and I recorded the whole thing because I said in there, I was like, look, when I do become a good business, you're going to look back at this and this is going to be an amazing video, because I am literally grinding it out at this thing, trying to find clients, trying to find people to be a part of what I'm doing. And it was as embarrassing as it gets. Wait till you see the video. You're going to be the first person I send the video to. Awesome. It is ridiculous and I say in there, I'm like, I was at Staples Center 30 days ago. And now I'm working this amateur wrestling event, and it's just part of the process. And for me, it's always been, if you want to get to this outcome, you must go through this process.
And it's a learning process.
That's it. And I think it's, and I believe it's it's a separator. It's a test. If, you know, are you willing to go through that? If not, then you never get to that level. And I will do anything to get there.
And I think that comes back to the ego. If you're doing it to be somebody, there's nothing more dangerous, from all my studies, there's nothing more dangerous than people who have to be somebody, because they're just so ego driven.
Right.
And, you know, if you're not ego driven, if you're not doing this YouTube channel, if I wasn't doing this YouTube channel, or if I was doing this YouTube channel to get as many followers as possible, I would look at some videos that I made that only have, 800 views, and it would upset me.
Right.
Now, does it upset me? Yeah, because I know people are missing something I said in that video. I'm like, you don't realize this is probably you like this thing about the left hamstring, and I'm telling you something completely different that's going to be so much more impactful if you could understand the message. And so I'm just like, these people, they don't know what they're missing. That's what gets me angry. Like, not because I only got 800 views, because I know they're missing out. I'm so passionate, and I know, I'm so confident that everyone can benefit from everything I'm doing.
Right.
That there's no, failure doesn't exist. Just because
you said it.
It doesn't exist. Those 800 people who watched it, I know I improved their life. So if you if you work in an industry or any type of job where you're helping people, and that is where you find flow, like you're with someone for an hour and a half and you're helping them, it's been 2 hours and you think it's been 15 minutes, and you're like, holy shit, we're 2 hours into this session. That is happiness right there. Don't outthink it. Don't think that you're going to be happier when you have 80,000 followers. You're not, because you're going to be worried about the followers.
Yeah.
Flow. When you're not fazed by being in some local WWE event, because you know your purpose is this is just part of going through that process of getting to that
Right.
point where you're helping even more people, you don't really think about it that much. Like I said,
Right.
the ego just falls away. Like you stop thinking about yourself so much, and you're living for the experience of helping people or whatever you do. And that's that flow. That's that book about flow. That's when you're
That's
in it. Time just melts away. You don't know how long you've been with that person. That's where I find my flow and my happiness. I think a lot of people outthink themselves. They think that, I think they have that feeling every now and then, but society or your family or your friends or what you think you should be doing just invades your mind again. You never let go of that pattern of thought. You've had inklings like, wow, I really like this. But you're still drawn. You still think happiness is found over there.
Right.
And it's not. And it's not.
Never
and
is.
If you stay passionate, it will grow. It might not grow like gangbusters, but it'll grow over time. People will find you. I think that's the lesson from someone like you. Like, if you're passionate about it and you're good at it, I mean, that's the other thing. You do have to be good. I mean, let's be honest.
No doubt.
You have to work on the skill. You have to be good at what you're doing. It'll work. It'll work, but you're not going to be Amazon. You're not going to be Amazon within the first 3 years. You know, you got to be patient.
That's it, man. That's it. If you can help people out, look at any company. Every company is successful because a lot of people, a lot of people believe that you're going to be able to help them out on whatever goal it is that they're trying to fulfill from your product. Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, 4A, whatever. It is literally, can you help? Can you help me out? If you can, and then at what scale can you help people out at?
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah. Without losing the ability to keep helping. Because sometimes I think sometimes you might get so busy, and this happened to me not too long ago. I was losing my effectiveness, I thought, because I was getting too many inquiries.
That's when the price goes up, Neil.
I know. I did a little bit of that. But it was taking me away from my zone, my flow, because you have too many people to think about. And you want to help everybody, but then you realize you can't. Because if you did, then you're going to be like, I was turning into a mental mush.
Right.
You know, and I just had to.
But that's where your YouTube channel comes into play, because now you've scaled it. You've scaled your ability to help. Yeah. Now you can point them in the direction of a video. You can do this and that. That's one of the reasons why there's so many courses for me. Because if I say you need to learn search engine optimization, I can just send you the link to the search engine optimization course. Yeah. And that's the scalability of this whole thing. Yeah. And man, I mean, that's some deep stuff, Neil, that we are all up in the weeds right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's probably a good place to stop. I mean, that's been an hour and 15 minutes or so, but that was a great conversation. Oh yeah, we never even talked about how we actually met. Just real quick, just say how we met.
Listen, this is the perfect cherry on top of this. Okay, everybody. So I'm sitting it was at the Jewish Community Center on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I'm taking Cervical Revolution with Ron Haruska, and sitting there, and Ron basically talking Chinese. I don't know what the hell he's saying. It's,
no one did. I've never been lost in my life.
Way over my head.
I've never been lost.
So Ron's like looking for. He's like a magic act. He's like calling up a volunteer from the audience. Here comes this guy, this stunningly handsome fella, super jacked. I mean,
I think he just saw my crossbite and was like, "This guy can help."
So he calls him up and he puts him through this routine. And I remember I think he gave you like a splint to put in your mouth.
Yeah.
And like, to me, like I was completely unfazed. I was in the front row. You were like in the third row back. And I was just kind of sitting there. I was like, okay, cool. And I've always been kind of like a skeptical as the tests change.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, like, is it really happening? Is he just kind of screwing around up there? What is it? And then I was like, wow, that test was actually pretty interesting. Like that was a pretty dramatic change from a pretty little thing that he did. And then like I remember sitting there, I was kind of like the cool guy in class, like sitting back like this. And like you were like back left angled of me. And I'm looking and you're just like getting distracted because you're back there. You're just like messing with your glasses. You're doing this. I was like, yo, what the hell's wrong with this guy back here? And so eventually, like, I don't know if you like raised your hand or they called on you to like talk about your experience. And you were talking about like all these like crazy changes that had just happened to you.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sitting there and now I'm like, okay, like, is this guy for real? Is this guy planted here by the Institute to make this, whatever. So I ended up after the event, I ended up emailing you out of thin air. right? I don't even know. How did I find your email address?
I don't know.
I'm savvy like that, Neil. I'm
You are.
savvy
You
like
are.
that.
It's a little scary. You stalked me.
So yeah, I'm just interested how I made that. I probably like scoped your name tag or something. So I found you, I emailed you, and I was like, dude, was that legit or was that not? And you wrote back like it was so clear from your email that everything that did happen to you was no BS. That was the real deal. And I don't think we actually linked up in person for like another year. So I was working in Arizona and stuff. And I don't even know when I ran into you next, but man, we've been boys ever since.
It was down in.
Was that the next time at the next cervical?
Yeah.
Well, there you go, man. And we just been absolute bros ever since because Neil's the freaking man.
Yeah. So like when I talk about grounding, that's real. When you feel your feet on the ground, making contact with the floor in ways that you were not feeling before he put that mouth guard in your mouth to take away your bite. And then you're just like, well, I was discombobulated, which is not most people, but like, this is a real thing. Like the sensory input that you're over sensing. And I talk about this, so hopefully some people will know what I'm talking about. That will ruin your life. I'm telling you.
Yep.
And I would have not had a clue until and I'm pretty sure he had the entire class come and look at my crossbite. He had me on the table with like my lips.
I do remember this.
And he had gloves on. He's like, look at that crossbite. That is ruining his life. And it was.
Look at this brutal jaw we got here.
Yeah, it was. I was like, hey, whatever. But that was real. And my body was completely destabilized, completely compensatory, completely ungrounded. And my neck did not move whatsoever. Yeah. And just getting that mouth guard in blew up my world. And then the next day he did the actual repositioning technique, the standing alternating cranial expansion. And I was seeing colors differently. My food tasted differently. I felt, you know how little I knew. I thought I was supinating on my right foot when I was pronating. I didn't really know what I was doing. Like, I didn't know the difference between supination and pronation at that point. I'm like, I think I'm supinating differently because I'm feeling my arch. I'm like, oh God. So you can learn this stuff. Trust me. I didn't know any of it. But like, you're just feeling your whole body differently. I didn't want to take that mouth guard off of my teeth because I was afraid to go back to the old way, which I did anyway because of my eyes. But like, it is mind-blowing. First, and again, most people are not going to be like that because they're not torsioned. But for the people that are, this is real stuff. And if you do not understand how sensory input affects your thought patterns even, much less your body patterns.
Right.
I was never seeing the world properly. How does that affect how you think? That's where my next research really is. If you have a visual dysfunction, how does that affect how your brain is actually interpreting the world? How you're seeing things?
Right.
How does that affect your mental well-being also, not just physical?
No doubt.
But yeah, it's all real. And I always tell people anyone who's trying PRI or trying to learn it, I was like, you got to take Cervical Revolution because you're not going to get the full picture just through those primary courses.
Of course.
Because, if that neck doesn't let go, everything you're trying to do is going to be it's going to work a little bit probably. Some people won't work at all. But you really got to go all in. You can't, like I think we've talked about, you can't do a little PRI. If you're doing a little PRI, you're not really doing PRI because you're not resolving the pattern. Like,
always.
You can't just do a little bit because that doesn't work like that. If you acknowledge a pattern, that pattern has to be resolved. And so you can't just do an adductor pullback and think that's PRI.
We've done it.
Yeah, and we all thought we were. It's like, I'm doing PRI.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
And then eventually 4 or 5 years in, you're like, oh wow, this is definitely different.
Yeah, I was not even close. I was horrendous.
Yeah, you realize how bad you really were at it, but it's a process. But anyway, that was awesome. That was great. I haven't spoken to you in a while, so that was really good.
I know, man. Well, it's great. It's always great to see you, Neil.
To see you as well. All right, we are signing off, and and then Sean, if you want to say how people can find your event.
Yeah, that's going to be at 4astepupchallenge.com. Very simply put, pretty self-explanatory after that. It's completely for free. It's September 7th through the 13th. We're only meeting for 1 hour a day. So we're not going to be taking up your entire week, just 1 hour a day. And that's over at 4A, the number 4, astepupchallenge.com. I feel like I'm ending my own podcast here.
Think of it as that way.
There it is. Perfect.
Yeah. This was for you anyway. All right. Thanks a lot.
You got it, baby.